All right. Welcome to episode 21 of the Pit Box Podcast. We have, there's only two of us today. It's just me and Gartrell. How you feeling?
Do I really have to answer that?
It's okay. I understand. We'll get into it. So as we told about in the previous episode, we said we were going to do an F1 season review. Of course, we originally planned on having at least four of us on, but scheduling conflicts have happened and it is what it is. And once again, have the shirt on. You guys see what it is. Let us know what you think about the shirts below. But so we'll get into it. Yesterday was the season finale at Abu Dhabi. As you guys probably saw if you're watching the podcast, it was pretty controversial at the end with Max coming across the line first to win and Mercedes taking the Constructors Championship. Now, rather than doing a full race review, because, realistically, other than the moment on the first lap, there wasn't really like that much relevant action until the last 6 laps or so. So we'll just jump right into the 6 laps. And then after that, we'll keep talking about the rest of the season. So just to summarize for you guys, here's what happened. Lewis is in the lead. He has a 10-11 second gap to Max.
It was about 14 seconds, like maybe 2 laps prior to that. He was making up some time. I think they calculated it had to be like 0.8 of a second for him to catch him in the amount of laps that were remaining in the race. But then, yes, around 6 laps left, it was about 11 to 12 second gap.
Yeah,
which is huge to make up. Huge.
Yeah, initially, Max was gaining, but then Lewis somehow found some pace in them old tires. And then the traffic came into play also because he started passing the lap traffic. And obviously that closed the gap for Max. But then once he got through the traffic, it started to open up again. But then as we saw a few laps ago, Latifi crashed, battling with Mick. I guess there will be no 8th this year. But it's not like Latifi intentionally crashed and Mick didn't actually he didn't wreck him. He just got on the marbles and spun into the wall. So of course that brought out the safety car. Initially, while the safety car was out, it was all right. Well, we're getting kind of close to the end. Let's see what happens. Will the race end under safety car, or will they get it cleaned out in time? And so they started working on cleaning up the mess. And initially they said, we're not going to allow the lap cars to pass. Okay, fair. They don't necessarily have to let them pass. Now, the reason why they said they didn't let the cars pass, and the main reason for having the safety car as opposed to the virtual safety car, was because they needed to bunch the field up so that they can actually provide adequate safety to the crew to be able to remove the car and clean up. So no argument there. That makes perfect sense. Never going to really argue with them over safety because that's kind of silly. So then they continue under safety car, and on lap 57, they then randomly say that the lap cars are allowed to go past. However, they didn't actually let all of the lap cars go past. They only did the cars that was between Max and Lewis. Now, according to the rules, which I'll actually share my screen and pull up just so that people know I'm not making this up. And this is actually what's in the rule book. You'll see the reference 48.12. If the clerk of the course considers it safe to do so, the message lap cars may now overtake has been sent to all competitors via the official messaging system. Any cars that have been lapped by the leader will be required to pass the cars on the lead lap and the safety car. Okay, then you jump down to the other relevant sentence, which is unless the clerk of the course considers the presence of the safety car is still necessary. Once the last lapped car has passed the leader, the safety car will return to the pits at the end of the following lap. Not the same lap, the following lap. Let me stop sharing my screen. We'll come back to that later. So, according to the rules, because it was lap 57, what was supposed to happen, if you were to read that, is either the race ends under safety car, because if you let all the cars by, that means the safety car leaves the track on lap 58, which is the end of the race, which means, like I said, it ends under safety car. Or what they could have did was not move the cars. You know, they have the right to leave the cars there if they choose. They have the right to move them. But in this case, if you wait till that lap, there's, you know, like I said, there's only two options. Either you leave the cars at that lap, or you allow the race enter the safety car, which isn't necessarily what you want to see, but that is what the rules say. So what ended up happening is, like I said, they only released the cars that was between Max and Lewis. Max had already made the stop for softs, so Lewis was pretty much a sit and duck. I mean, he still put up a pretty good fight for someone on pretty old tires, and Max was able to pass him, which was like the cleanest pass he's made at least the second half of the year.
Mm.
And boom. So then here comes the controversy, because we're kind of like, wait, what just happened? Why did they only clear some of the cars? And if they cleared the cars, then why didn't it end under safety car? And if they didn't move the cars, then Lewis technically would have won either way, because there's no way Max was passing 5 cars and him in one lap with the pace he had. And like I said, if you ends under the safety car, you can't pass. So yeah, so then we start to dig deeper into the rules, right? Share screen again. So then, you know, of course, this challenge, as you guys know, and they say that they went on 48.13, which let me find the relevant sentence. So first line, you know, when a clerk of the course decides it is safe to call in the safety car, the message "safety car in this lap" will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system, and the car's orange lights will be extinguished. This will be the signal to the competitors and the drivers that it will be entering the pit lane at the end of this lap. Now, the FIA said this is the reason why, and also the other rule, which was like 30, it was 15.3, that basically just says Michael Masi can do what he wants. It's kind of like, it doesn't make any sense, because 48.13 has to be predicated upon 48.12. So that's strike number one. And then if you just disobey your own rules, which they then admitted they didn't follow fully, what is the purpose in the rule? Because at that point, you can kind of just do what you want.
If it was my remembrance of this event, I think the words were, "That's motor racing toto." That was what he said to him. It's motor racing toto. I said, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding?" You can finish. I have a lot to say, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. So for me, I would be perfectly fine if that initial call that they're not going to allow the lap cars through was reversed originally, because that would just be good strategy call by Red Bull. You got it right. Cool. I can get with that. Like, I understand it's racing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always
Right.
going for your favor, but for it to end like that, it just left a sour taste in my mouth, because I'm like,
More than a sour taste, though. Like, all right, so I have some grievances. I need to air it out. Obviously, you know, you gave the synopsis, the whole thing laid out on the flat, right? That what it comes down to is the basis of fairness, right? Now, in most instances, you know, motor racing isn't always going to be fair one way or the other, right? But the rules are meant to apply to all cars on the track at all times, giving them all the fair opportunity. right? If you're bunching up cars on a safety lap, which is the purpose of a safety lap, as you said, right? A safety car lap, virtual or not, or with the actual safety car out, is to get this, is to allow, the track help to get onto the track safely, remove any damage without, possibly getting killed or hurt or whatever the case may be, from cars racing. Now, okay, you made a call, right? They'll not pass. Fine. You overturn the call. Perfectly fine, right? It's racing. That's allowed. But to only half enforce the rule, where now not only have you made it unfair for technically Lewis, I guess you could say, in a sense, but more so the rest of the pack that was lapped that did not get a chance to continue racing in close proximity with those that they would have otherwise been racing with in a normal safety car situation with unlapped cars, right? You've let 5 people continue on racing these lap cars, not even have a chance to actually go racing as, they would be intended. So that's strike number 1 for me, because now you've created unfair situations in multiple instances for multiple drivers, right? Now, for you people who are going to say, oh, but, none of this matters. Red Bull made the perfect strategy call. What was Lewis doing out there with old tires? No. Now, at the end of the day, I will say both teams did exactly what they were supposed to do based on the strategies that they were working with, right? There was always going to be a Red Bull does the opposite of what Mercedes does, or Mercedes does the opposite of what Red Bull does, right? Always. If I'm first, I'm not giving up track position to go in for the pits when I got tires that can get me to the end of the race. Whereas if I pit, Red Bull's going to stay out because I want track position now. I have slightly better tires, whatever the case may be. I think Max did 2 pit stops because they had 2 safety cars throughout the race. So he went off the hards to mediums and off the mediums to softs, if I remember correctly, or 2 hards and then softs at the end.
Well,
Regardless.
he on soft.
Okay. But he had a set of, he switched to, they both were on hards.
He went
and
to
then
the hards.
Hit it again on the virtual safety car.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he had mediums, or he had 2 pairs of softs. I'm sorry, is that what it was?
He finished the race on
softs. Yeah, I know that, but he had pitted again after his hards.
He did have a extra stop. I mean, they had it in the bag because third place was nowhere to be found, and his teammate.
Yeah,
at the time, his teammate. So it was like it's a free pit stop for them. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Lewis being out in front, it didn't really make any sense to stop.
Right?
You do it the track position, and then
with 15-second lead. What sense does that make?
Well, he's in control. He's in control, right. And you literally just hand Max the championship. And then we've really been scratching our heads like, what was that call about?
Right. It didn't matter what situation he was. It was always about doing the opposite of whatever team did. So they played their strategies perfectly. What happened was the reason why he lost wasn't the fact that he stayed out on his tires. He did exactly what he was supposed to do, and Mercedes knew that he would win the race regardless of if he'd of stopping. He had it in control. He had it in the bag. The rule change was the whole issue, and the choice not to follow the rules. And it's mind-boggling that something like that could happen. And it's crazy if Michael Massey doesn't lose his job over this. Like, this man's just gonna like what's to stop him from doing something like this again?
I don't know, man. I mean, they went to the rule, which I read. I'm not going to pull it back up because I have to find the exact number. But pretty much it was saying it gives him control over deployment and, and bringing in the safety car, which is like, it's obvious. But like I said, if the rule literally says the following lap, if you're going to allow the cars through, to, like I said, not only not follow the rule where you didn't let all the cars through, but then you cut the safety car lap short, and then you justify it by saying basically you don't have to follow your own rules, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And the thing that,
it's like Netflix or Impractical Jokers is running the show and not the FIA.
And that's true. And I honestly think that this was a ploy to bring more attention to the sport, to end it on like this crazy high note. It was a crazy season all the way through. And now to end on, this kind of like weaker note of like a safety car ending, okay, yeah, but that's what should have happened, right? Versus like, no, let's make this interesting. It's basically manufacturing an ending. It wasn't like to say like, oh, we're gonna give it a Red Bull. It was more like, let's just make it interesting. Let's see what happens if we set this last situation up, which was it was like, how can you like do this? I don't know. Basically, they deleted a 12-second lead that Lewis worked extremely hard to maintain throughout the entirety of the race, which is very difficult, right? They started at like what, 1 second to put over 12 seconds, 15 seconds on someone by just sheer pace on same tires. That's skill right there. And to basically just undermine his skill just for, viewership at the end of the day, and Drive to Survive, and all the bandwagon people will be like, oh, this is a crazy sport. I gotta, like, who are you trying to please? You know what I mean? Like these newcomers or the people that have been upholding the sport the whole time? Because everyone's going to look at this that's been watching for long enough as heresy. So it's kind of mind boggling to me. And honestly, the thing that hurts me the most is like, I just keep picturing this thing, Lewis walking into the pit box or somewhere around in the garage, and his father embracing him, and he's not even hugging his father. He's just like in this mental state of like being defeated. Like, how do you do? Because he knew he had that. He knew he worked his whole race for that. He deserved that win in my mind. I'm not saying Max is not a great driver. He's a great driver. In some instances, I question it, but you have to question a lot of people's decision in racing at all times. Lewis has some questionable moments. Everyone has some questionable moments, right? But that's racing at the end of the day, right? But he worked harder for that race. I think he deserved it. It's real terrible. Yeah, and I just can't get over that. They also just created that unfair situation for those that were lapped that didn't get a chance to undo that. And I think regardless, if they had let just those 5 cars through, if they had let all the cars through, the safety car would have had to stay out longer to pass the safety car, meaning they would have crossed that line, and it wouldn't have mattered if Massey said come in. The safety car would have had to complete the lap to come into the pits, and the race would be over. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny. Like I've seen a lot of people on the internet, like, oh, Max deserved to win because they're like, oh well, you got taken out at Silverstone, you got kamikaze, that Hungaroring, the tire blowout. I'm like, okay, but
that's race.
That's racing, and it's not like Lewis had a perfect season. He made mistakes.
Yeah,
he had some things not go his way, and they still came to the final race tied on points. So it's not whoever has the best final race deserves to win.
Mm-hmm.
Just because homeboy, quote unquote, made less mistakes. He's the real the real champion. But whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course there's been all the talks about will they actually follow through with them, protesting the results, because the initial protest got thrown out because, like I said, they quoted one of their other rules to kind of just say Michael's able to do whatever he wants.
Yep.
But if they actually do continue to take it to the next level, it's not even going to change anything, because the FIA, for one, will never admit they're wrong.
Right.
Right. They'll be like, you know what, we messed up, but it is what it is. That's what the answer is going to be, and maybe they'll give Mercedes some money or something to try and make them feel better. But yeah, they're going to get hit with we messed up, sorry. And then and as a racer, like, I wouldn't want Max's title to be stripped because of that, because it's not his fault. It's not like he caused a collision or something like that. It's Because if it was flipped the other way, you think Mercedes would have said like, "Oh no, we're not going to take this advantage." Like, yeah, of course they would have took the advantage.
Yeah.
My beef is more so with the FIA, even though I'm far from the biggest Red Bull fan. um, but yeah, so this is going to play out.
4 things to say though. 4 things. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's going to play out over the whole off season if they pursue it because it's not a process. That's
so
it.
4 things to note about like kind of like wrapping up this whole rule thing, this whole controversy. Obviously, the FIA is dead wrong. I don't care what anybody wants to say. One, I'll put an asterisk in my mind on this man's championship. Like it's like read more details, and there's like a list, and but I'll leave it at that. Great racers still partially deserving, but I think Lewis was robbed.
Yeah, he wouldn't win the race.
100%. Next, to talk about the protest a little bit, I saw Christian Horner's comments on the initial protest, and I said, "Excuse you." I think one of the things he said was, "Any doesn't mean all," and then you read that you literally read the whole sentence, and any definitely does mean all. And I was like, "What kind of argument is that? You are not a lawyer. Stay in the pit box. Stay on the channels. That's where you belong. Don't bring yourself into this." Like Mercedes brought a lawyer and they brought Christian Horner. I can't believe, and they wrote that down. That was, get out of here with that. Next up, I know they said that they dropped that, but then they would appeal that as they're allowed to.
Court of Appeals.
Right. And I've heard rumors that they were dropping it, and I've also heard rumors that Hamilton was actually a proponent of that and saying drop it. And that's crazy to me in my mind. Like, and it also just speaks, if it is true, because it is a rumor, if it is true, it just speaks to the level of just like sportsmanship that man is on. Because I guarantee you, had this been reversed, Lewis winning under safety car or just going the whole race with Latifi not crashing, Max would have stormed off, not even and shook the man's hand. Tell me that's not true. Tell me that's not true. It happened in Jeddah. He took his bottle and walked off the stage. Lewis did not do that. Lewis, at the end of the race in Saudi Arabia, he sprayed it a little bit. He, kept up appearance, shook his hand, looked him in the eye, and walked away. Max would not have done the same thing, and I guarantee you, he is a sore loser. And everyone says that Lewis is a sore loser. No. Max would have done, I guarantee you. I'm sorry. We'll never know, but in my mind, come on. Like, I feel like people who have seen this man's like demeanor know that he would not have done that. He would have done the complete opposite. So that just speaks to,
we'll never know.
Yeah. Insert Kanye. I guess we'll never know, but I know in here. And also I want to talk about real quick the first lap, turn 5, turn 6, I think it was, where Max had pushed him off and there was the whole controversy. People will cry about that to the end of the world. That had no bearing on who was going to win the race at all. Lap 1 does not decide a race ever. Not that I've seen, unless you get taken out, like literally taken out of the race in lap 1. That's it. But I just kind of want to touch. People were saying, "Oh, he didn't push him off the track." On the last lap, when he started off in second place, but they did the same turn after starting that first lap. Watch it back. Max did the same exact move he did on lap 1, stayed within the bounds, and Hamilton did not have to go off. So now tell me that he didn't push him off the track. Watch it back. You could literally watch them side by side. He does the same inside move on the apex and stays in the lines and gives enough space for that Hamilton doesn't have to go off. So he knew he could have did that move on lap 1 without pushing him off, but he did it anyway because he didn't want to give him space. So let's see what kind of racer Max really is in that instance. You can watch it. I'm just saying, but I noticed that.
Obviously, like, you can make the argument he probably has the most aggressive overtaking style on
more
the
than aggressive.
right
I
now.
think I think it's
Uh,
dangerous. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of this probably would be different if these
yeah,
tracks had like more sand traps and grass and stuff.
yeah.
You can just send it and then you can essentially abort right into the
Mhm.
concrete and just keep rolling. That kind of changes things also. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, it was eventful. Definitely wasn't. It definitely didn't end how I expected it to end because I was trying to hold off on uh, the celebrations until it was all said and done. I mean, luckily I did because that would have been a real uh, pie and face moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like it doesn't even feel right.
No.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm willing to accept defeat if it's like a legitimate. He just outgunned him,
Right.
but
But
for them to just start pulling random things out the hat, and then their response to pulling things out the hat was just like, all right, I see what's going on here.
yeah.
But but while we're talking about the consistently inconsistent stewarding, in reality, we kind of saw this all season long. We saw that Red Bull ring for one, where it didn't even have anything to do with Max and Lewis, obviously, but I thought it was the NBA equivalent of trying to draw a foul when you shooting a three,
A
when
flop.
when you shoot and you just kick the defensive player. Like it was kind of the same thing because people were trying to make passes on the outside. Then they get the
Mhm.
door closed on them. They drive into the grass or clip a little bit of the sand trap, and the person on the inside whose corner it was getting penalized. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where it started. I was like, this doesn't even make sense because in that race, they made it that if you take any risk uh, going to the outside, there is no risk because if you don't make the pass and you just drive off the track, then it's the other person's fault. When in
Mhm.
reality, you took the risk in attempting to pass somebody on the outside,
Mhm.
when it wasn't really your corner. Right. And then we have Silverstone, of course. I personally thought it was a racing incident. Uh Lewis understeered and Max turned in my opinion. Um they gave him a penalty. Obviously they gave him a light penalty because kind of wasn't like to me it wasn't even worth something really penalizing. It's kind of like if the way they officiated the whole season, if there was contact, somebody's getting a penalty, and depending on uh, who they felt was more wrong in the situation is the one that got the penalty. And then within that, it's like, well, you were wrong, but how wrong were you really? You know. So then you got Monza. Even though I personally thought that was also more of a racing incident, that man bugged out. Ended up on top of
Yep.
the car. Then of course there's Brazil, which was mad sus because they didn't even look at it when it happened. Uh, then you have last week in Saudi Arabia, which some questionable stuff, but okay, Max is penalized. And then you have this race, well, yesterday's race, where I mean Lewis avoided and gunned it across the concrete, kept it pushing. And like, yeah, the gap did close, which the FIA said, but I personally don't know if it was supposed to be if it was officiated, how it's supposed to be officiated, whether he'd had to give him the spot back or close the gap more to like allow Max to get alongside him. That I don't know. We will never know until they decide to actually consistently officiate.
Yeah.
uh, so yeah, what else you gotta say about the officiating?
Well, it seemed to be obviously inconsistent. In some aspects, it was fair because I felt as in certain situations they would kind of give like those closer officiated like instances, like kind of like a back and forth. It's like almost like a jump ball type of situation where it go one way and the next way it go the other. Like it'd be like that more so. Um, so but overall, yes, very inconsistent. I would think for example, like, I don't know, just going back to last race because it's just the most fresh in my mind. Obviously driving across, they said that they like throughout the lap though, he did give back the time in terms of that he gained, and he didn't have a lasting advantage. And I think that's true because after that turn, they were within like less than a second of
The
each
gap
other, I
did
think, at some
close.
point. Right, you're right. It was close. It was close enough to the point where if Max is making less mistakes per lap, he definitely could have gotten to the point of passing him or at least being like right alongside him. And then it kind of goes back to the end for me and like the weird officiating, because we could talk about real fast the after the safety cars ending. This man is like breaking and gassing past this man. Doesn't matter how many inches you're passing him and going backwards. No penalty for that. No looking into that at all, really. I mean, I think they dismissed it faster than fast. I don't know. Just
The only reason I'm going to shoot him some bail for the sake of being objective is that when Lewis actually legitimately accelerated to start that last lap,
he was ahead.
He was, yeah. Max was
Yes.
behind him. So yes, Max did technically violate the rule repeatedly because he might have passed him like 3 times, but they said it has to do with the heating up of the tires and the brakes and stuff. So I'll shoot him some bail on that because he wasn't right next to him when the time actually came to start.
But does being at a certain spot at the track, like being next to them, give him some more advantage in terms of when they started? I don't know if that makes sense. Like they were pretty close all through turn. Shoot, you're really quizzing me here. I've been on the sim, but I really can't number them. It was like the second to last left before the grid line, the checkered flag line.
Yeah.
It was like right there. But I mean, I don't know. They started right afterwards. It's touch and go for me. So I don't know.
But that part, that to me kind of has to do with the rules because I don't even know when someone is controlling the pace like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, like they have to wait for the safety car to get off the track.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's a certain like zone where they can start once the safety car is clear, or if they just to make a random example. Let's say they were only halfway around the track and the safety car was cleared. Could he actually just start the lap from that halfway point? That I genuinely don't know. But like I said, I didn't think that was really going to stand anyways because I didn't have any material impact on what happened. Obviously, it was other offense that had the material impact on what happened.
What would have been the penalty? Like a time penalty, 1-2 seconds or something like that?
I don't know. I mean, they have the discretion to be able to do what they want, apparently. So maybe,
anything you want.
Yeah, maybe it could have been a second. Maybe he would have got a point on his license. Who knows? Maybe like I don't know what it could have been. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess just checking along then.
Yep. Now we're gonna run through first the driver standings, and then we'll talk about the constructor standings. So it was Max, Lewis, Valtteri, Checo, Carlos, Lando, Charles, Danny, Pierre, Fernando, Ocon, Vettel, Sir Lancelot, Yuki, George, Iceman, the newest member of the Red Bull payroll, Nicholas.
Oh my God.
Italian Jesus, There Will Be No Eighth, and Mazepin. So that was the standings for the year. Was there? What are your takeaways from the results?
Real fast, just to tap at it. It was so funny you said that about Latifi because I'm pretty sure during the race, way before the crash, you were like you wouldn't be surprised if Williams was was doing yeah. And I was like, Steve, where you getting your info from? I was like, after the crash, I was like, who you been talking to? But going back to the standings. It's top four was pretty obvious. There's no just it was always going to be one way or the other for Max or Lewis, but Bottas definitely better than Perez. I no doubt in my mind. Also interesting how they pulled him from the race, and I think that was also just to get a technical car out of the way when that whole situation was set up. I don't think there was anything wrong with this car. I don't know why they retired him, but
So there's two things I've been seeing online. The first one, they were saying his oil pressure has started dropping. Uh,
mm,
and then the other one was they said he was risking running out of gas, which I don't really believe.
that's
That
bull.
doesn't even sound right.
No,
So we'll for now we'll just say he was suffering from a loss of oil pressure, which is why they pulled him. That's what
I think
that's the only thing we can go off right now.
I think they pulled him to avoid uh Max having to deal with one more car, maybe in a corner where he would have had to pass him, and it wouldn't have been ideal to slow down or have someone move or whatever. I don't know, but regardless, moving back onto the order, Sergio Perez in fourth, Carlos Sainz beating out Charles Leclerc. You tapped on that. I thought that was interesting because Charles basically did not lead his team. Also, didn't end up on the podium. He got it was Carlos Sainz obviously, which is great for him, by the way. Lando Norris, kind of where I expected him to be. Daniel Ricciardo also kind of expected, that the Ferrari McLaren fight. There was always going to be somewhere around there. Very happy with Pierre Gasly beating out Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon. I think that they both had some really stellar performances towards the end of the season, especially Alonso and Ocon, with Ocon damn near leading the race in Jeddah, which was surprising, and then but you just didn't expect that from him, honestly. But Pierre Gasly also just he was really solid throughout the season, like sixth place qualifying most of the time.
He was on
Even
fire.
got yeah, Q, and right all through qualifying and just FP 1, 2, and 3, he would be setting really fast lap times, even being top three in instances, which is crazy. I mean, you're in an inferior car and you're literally beating out Mercedes. In some instances, Bottas wouldn't even make it up to second place in FP2, FP3. I think he even started third place in a couple, one or two races. I'm not 100% sure. I forget. So that was cool. I was really kind of disappointed with Vettel and Stroll. I think that they should have been more towards the fight with Ferrari and McLaren, and it's just real back markers the whole season. It was really, really disappointing, actually. And then Yuki Tsunoda, fantastic, I think, for a rookie season. We'll get to that. George Russell, we'll see how he does in Mercedes next year. It doesn't, honestly, I'm not even going to go too in depth with that. It's Williams now. Williams used to be great, no longer great. What can you do? And then the rest of the grid just does not surprise me whatsoever. I wish Kimi put in more effort. I feel as though he could have done a little bit more. I know that Alpha is not the most amazing car, but neither is Alpine to start. And Fernando Alonso giving his all, and ending up where he did. I feel like Kimi could have done a little bit more, but yeah, that's it. And obviously, no surprise for Schumacher and Mazepin. Really sad for Schumacher. He's probably a great driver, just in one of the worst cars on the grid. So it's pretty sad, but yeah.
Well, at some point he'll be climbing the ladder.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
hope so soon.
yeah, we don't know if it'll be a straight jump to Ferrari or if they'll make him go to Sauber and then up to Ferrari. But like I said, he's in the pipeline, so at some point he'll get his opportunity. Uh, for me, it kind of finished for the most part, just going off the season, how I expected, but I didn't think that Charles was going to get beat by Carlos. Judging just going off the standings, I probably would have switched their spots if you ask me. when the year started, what I thought it was going to be. You know, yeah. But other than that, I'm not particularly surprised by the results. You know, there was a good midfield battle going on. I think that at some point McLaren really started to focus on next year because they were really rolling, and then suddenly they just weren't rolling. And I know, of course, like maybe the tracks didn't quite suit their car as well as those races when they were rolling, but yeah, you know, like I said, other than that, it's kind of what I expected. Yeah, I mean, Danny Rick, I felt like it. It took him a little while to get going. Obviously, he has a win, which better than what most of the field can say, considering only like
Yep.
4 people won a race this year. Um,
Mhm.
but he did start to get his act together. But I think he'll probably be all right next year. Still a really good driver, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I said, we'll talk about uh, Yuki a little bit later in the show. And yeah, his teammate held it down. He carried them on his back all season long, consistently putting in work. And I will give some credit where credit is due. Props to Honda on getting all cars in the top 5 in their last race. I will say
Mhm.
that for them. That'll make Mary very happy when she hears this. Uh, but yeah, so now we will jump over to the constructors, right? So we have Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine, AlphaTauri, Aston, Williams, Alfa Romeo, and then Haas. Any surprises here for you?
No, honestly, I think, well, the only one that I think, could have been swapped and I would have been like, that would make more sense to me is AlphaTauri and Alpine. Obviously real close, like less than, well, a little, what, over 10 points. And I chucked that to Yuki being a rookie. And literally, I think maybe if this was maybe not his rookie season, but maybe his, second season in F1, that would have definitely been a reverse, like definitely a reverse situation. With him being in the points more often, it's a big adjustment, from F2 to F1. So that's the only one I think that stands out to me. Everything else is kind of just like dead in a row. Like I wouldn't have expected anything different.
So I agree. You know, obviously between Ocon and Alonso, they consistently as a team, which is more consistent than Pierre, Yuki. You know, Pierre was consistent, but Yuki had moments that didn't look so good. But then you had moments like yesterday where he finished 4th, his best result that he did look good. You know,
Yep.
um, like you said earlier in the show, disappointed with Aston. You know, technically last year they should have finished 3rd, but
Mm-hmm.
because they got penalized for essentially copying Mercedes' homework
Just
and
card. Yeah, exactly.
painting it pink, uh, yeah, they lost those points. Otherwise, they would have beat McLaren last year for 3rd place. But
Mhm.
other than that, yeah, it kind of finished pretty much where I thought it was going to. I would have thought that potentially McLaren could have finished 3rd again, but Ferrari actually put a uh, decent sized lead on them. You know,
Mhm.
about time the season ended because, like I said, their performance did start to suffer, and Ferrari stayed strong the last half of the season. Yeah, but yeah,
Mhm.
so like I said, that's kind of my disappointment there. And yeah, that's kind of how I felt about the final standings. So now, what was your favorite race of the year?
Brazil, hands down. Simply because my man literally came back from 20th place to win a race. Like the amount of work and just like sheer like headspace you have to be in along with your team and everything just flowing like perfectly, unmatched. I think it's definitely going down in history. I mean, making up all those places in a sprint race to 5th, still taking your penalty, starting 10th, finishing 1st. You can't write this. And that Drive to Survive, you better glorify that freaking race. Glorify it. Glorify it.
Yep.
Have my man cheesing in the interview. That's literally what I want to see.
Brazil is my favorite race too. But for the sake of trolling people, I'm gonna say Silverstone was my favorite race.
My
but
God.
not because not because they had that massive crash. That was like
Yeah.
1G impact. That's serious. You don't want to see nobody get hurt.
Right.
But it was just people's reactions to it. I thought was amusing, and that kind of made it my favorite race. And then also, did you really think he was going to lose his home race? The man has part of the track named after him. Did he come to the track with a bulletproof vest on that day? Like some 03 G unit?
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Y'all knew what time it was when he woke up that morning. Actually, you could have booked that when the season started that he was winning that race.
Yeah.
So,
He comes there with it all ready in his head. He's like, "There's no way I'm losing this."
Yeah,
literally.
You can take that one to the bank. But but yeah, so that's what we ours too. Like I said, Brazil was really my favorite race of the year. But Silverstone was second, and I will go with that since you said Brazil. Okay, so now we both kind of just agree that Yuki is rookie of the year. I mean, it was between him and Mick. Yuki's in the better car, and I think he improved. He had some good results. He learned for sure. He was able to battle Lewis, which looked pretty good at Turkey. Rookie of the year, no argument there. Another W for Mary.
Yep. I even got this man's car right here, actually. Let me grab it. I'll show you.
Shoot. Here we go. Show it to him.
Yes, sir.
This is more of the B-Tech propaganda that Mary will love when she watches this. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a cool little add-on.
Yep. Cool. So then we have our last topic, which is your top 3 favorite helmets of the year. Give them to me.
All right. It's going to be pretty biased and a little shocking, I think, but I personally loved the Senna Tribute, especially for that race. It just made that race so much more like magical. You know what I mean? It's like, here I am, I'm at this man's home race, right? One of the greatest to ever do it.
His idol.
Literally puts on the helmet, starts in 20th place, and then comes out on first. It's just like, not only is it like a beautiful helmet and tribute, it's like a beautiful moment just altogether. Like it's storybook stuff. It's like, eat it up. You know what I mean? Like you can literally like roast it and it's crazy, but whatever.
And then carrying the flag around the track, and then wearing it like a cape on the podium. Yeah.
Yep. You couldn't. The FIA couldn't script it better, if I put it that way. But the next one I'd probably say, honestly, I don't put too much looking into like different people's helmets. Like maybe if I follow more of the racers, I would say, I mean, like I follow them, but I don't like follow them on like Instagram. You know what I mean? So that's where you kind of like see all the artwork and stuff beforehand. I'm definitely going to go with Lewis's final helmet. I thought that was a beautiful helmet, the rainbow metallic. Just showing like I just love that it's like so, like almost all of his helmet decisions go into some type of like social or some type of like tribute or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, how can you not love the guy for doing stuff like that? Like, not only is he like a great racer and just like a role model, he's a proponent for like good in the world. And that's like something that you don't see in a lot of different people who might be great in their area. You know what I mean? And Max, I don't think Max does that anywhere. But just saying. And so I don't know, I really like that. But I will say I did very much like the design, just in general, of Max's helmet as well for the final race. It was just cool. I like, different colors. I like, little aspects that pop. The line was pretty cool. But yeah, if we're talking about helmets, that's really it. I'm trying to think. Maybe Botus actually too. I know I'm giving you four, but that last one of his was also pretty cool. I like that as well.
Yeah.
So, can you tell I like Mercedes yet?
Yeah. Very, very apparent. Yeah. So for me, I'll go in order like 3, 2, 1. Number 3 would be Lewis's Silverstone helmet.
Mm.
I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, it was just a slight edit on his regular design, but there was just something real visually appealing about it that I really liked. Number 2 is Yuki's Autumn Leaves helmet that he wore at Coda. I thought that was just fire. Like just the multicolored leaves on the helmet. Like I've never thought about that before. And yeah, that was just some heat, some real heat. There was a lot of cool helmets at Coda actually, but that one in particular really stood out. Like Danny had the Dale Earnhardt tribute helmet.
That was cool.
Lando had the USA flag looking like Captain America out there. George had the sheriff helmet. Alonso had the volcano on the back to raise awareness for the volcano that erupted. That looked pretty cool as well. Yeah, like I said, there were some cool helmets at Coda. But number 1 for me this year, usually I have to find a way to give Lando the number 1 spot because that's the helmet god. And while he would have gotten 4th place for the helmet he just wore yesterday, my favorite helmet for the year was Charles's French Grand Prix karting tribute helmet with the yellow, with the 16, like, somewhat inscribed in it. Yeah, I don't know what it was, but that was the one for me this year. So while Lando is still the helmet king, I gotta give Charles number 1 spot this year for coolest helmet. And he only used it obviously just for the French Grand Prix, but that was that heat right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was a extremely entertaining season. It was way more drama than I thought there was going to be. Oh, here's one thing I will say that I hope happens. I hope next year that either we can't hear the conversations between Toto and Christian talking to Michael, or maybe they should just cut the line altogether.
They should.
I'm not trying to hear him be like, "Oh, make sure this doesn't go to safety car," and then the other man is like, "Oh,
make sure we get 1 racing lap." That's what he said.
Yeah, let's get 1 lap in after he just asked for a miracle on national television, and then
they gave it to him.
He gets a miracle.
Tied a bow and handed it to him, literally.
Yeah,
I was like, what?
Like, I genuinely hope that changes. Like I said, either I don't want to hear what they have to say, or their line to Michael should just be cut altogether because they're like 2 grown men yelling in his ear.
Not even that, just influence. Because when you're in high pressure situations, you automatically, can be influenced because you're not thinking like I'm making my decision and that's final. It's kind of like I got this person in this, and it's like, and you spit out like a decision. So you're definitely right.
Exactly. But yeah, other than that, like I said, real entertaining year. Whole lot of drama, maybe too much drama. Next year we get new regulations. Hopefully we get some consistent officiating, and yeah, let the best man win. Hopefully, at some point we'll do a season preview. So that's why we didn't talk about any of the driver changes and what we think about them going to 18-inch wheels and who we think could be fast going into next year. We'll talk about all that on that later episode. Probably won't be the next one, but yeah, as usual, thank you for listening. Comment below what you thought of everything that goes on. Do you guys think that anything will change? let us know. And we're always here. Pitbox Podcast. We will talk to you guys soon.
Peace.